much. And that was very humbling, and I really appreciate that introduction. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And then I'll actually start by thanking all of you for having me here. I really appreciate it. As you just alluded to, what you do at the ADRC is extremely close and personal to me. In fact, I am a client of yours. I am in the all FTD study. My family has a genetic form of FTD. And so, literally, I was just there about a month ago getting blood and going through all your tests and the MRI and the lumbar puncture and all the fun stuff. So what you do is matters very, very much to me. It's very close to my heart. And we also have on the phone today is Morgan Suchin. She's our Assistant Director of Programs. She'll be listening in and may chime in from time to time. Morgan also comes from an FTD, frontal temporal dementia family. And so what you guys do is very close and appreciated by both of us. So what I'll do is, you just did a fantastic introduction, so that makes my next slide much easier. So I'll just kind of give a quick, brief overview. And what we're going to dive into today is we're going to talk about how we can equip ourselves with empathy and communication, what resources exist both here in San Diego and nationally. Obviously, I can't cover everything, but I'll kind of cover the highlights and some good starting points. And then we'll kind of end with some talking about actions that bring healthy lifestyles and what our programs do in ways that maybe you could either get involved or you could help some of your patients/clients by referring them to some of the support that we have. I hope that today, I know that I'm speaking to the choir right now, and I recognize a few of the names. And so some of this information, I hope that it just validates what you already know, maybe adds a new perspective of how to talk to the families with dementia. And, like I said, it's probably going to reiterate a lot of what you already know. And that is a hopeful goal of mine. So again, I am the executive director and the founder. My background before Further Thoughts was I was a engineer and subject matter expert for the military, leading energy security and energy sustainability across the different Department of Defenses. And then after my mom was diagnosed in her early 50s with frontal temporal dementia, I started learning about how incredibly isolating it is to the families that are caring for their loved ones with dementia. Unfortunately, a month after my mom was diagnosed, my grandmother was diagnosed. And so we very quickly found out that we do have an autosomal dominant gene, the progranulin mutation for FTD. And so dementia is very much in my past, in my present, and in my future. And what really got me to start Further Thoughts is reflecting back. Like I said, I felt very isolated and alone. Here, you can see on the screen, my mom was not even diagnosed in person. She was just given simply a letter in the mail saying that she had primary progressive aphasia, a form of FTD, and that this information has been shared with a family doctor, and thank you for coming to see me, is the gist of what the letter was. It was 5 sentences. And this was from a specialist. This was not from a family doctor. This was not from a general neurologist. This was from a specialist in neurology for dementia. And we didn't know where to go with that. What was going to happen to her, how long she was going to live, where we were going to get help. And at first, I thought that story was very isolated to my family situation. I didn't know anybody else. I was 23 years old. I didn't know anybody else that was going through this. My mom was young, and FTD is not as common as Alzheimer's. And so I thought it was kind of a specific situation to us. And then after about a decade of doing fundraising and getting involved in different organizations, I realized that my story was not my story. It belongs to literally millions of Americans across the country. Families that we've provided grants for, some of their quotes have been, "I feel like I'm on an island all alone." I'm sorry, some of these sentences get me emotional. I'm a prisoner in my own home. Sometimes the emotional toll is the hardest part. And these are real quotes from families here in California that are going through this. And so, as you beautifully said, our goal is to bring hope and relief and lift the stigma, lift the community and caregivers, and lift each other by bringing compassion to the forefront, dementia health literacy to the forefront. So that's what we're going to go through today. And I'll talk a little bit at the end, specifically about our programs and some ways that actually the ADRC has already helped families with us. So starting with the 101 that I'm sure everybody on the phone call knows, but dementia and Alzheimer's are the same thing. That is probably the number one question that we get asked, and I'm sure you get asked that as well. And explaining that Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. And sometimes it's really worth to pause and ask, do our patients, do our families actually understand this? Because there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of generalizing, as you know, about dementia. So as we go through the rest of this presentation, I told you about my mom and my grandmother and why this is personal to me. And so I would ask that maybe everybody just take a moment and either write it down or just think about it. But who is your who? Who who or how are you connected with dementia? It might just be your client, but you might also have a personal story, or is there you do have a personal concern of your own brain health? And when we have this presentation for the general audience, we ask them to name 3 causes of dementia because so many people know about Alzheimer's, but that's about where their knowledge ends. And so, what is dementia? It's a general term for the symptoms that are caused by degenerative brain diseases. We like to tell families that if you go to the doctor with a cough and they run a bunch of tests and then they come back and they say, you have a cough, what does that tell you? They just told you what the symptom is. They did not tell you the underlying disease. They didn't tell you if it was COVID, if it was the flu, or another kind of illness that could cause a cough. And so we like to educate people on the fact that there are different types of diseases that cause dementia. The non-medical term that I like to use is that it's a processing disease. The words that you're hearing out of my mouth right now aren't actually words. You're hearing sound waves. And then those sound waves, my brain is translating and your brain is translating into the words that you hear. And with dementia, their brain is degrading. Their brain is being attacked. And depending on where in the brain is being affected, that's going to drive the types of symptoms they have. My mother never lost her memory. She never forgot who I was, who my siblings were, or who my father was. But she lost her ability to read, to write, to understand what anybody was saying to her. And so we like to remind people that it is a processing disease. And so one of the most important things that we need to do is empathize with the fact that it's a processing disease, and they really are trying the best that they can. This is a really great slide that I like to show out of UCSF that it just shows a nice visual of an Alzheimer's brain versus a frontal temporal dementia brain. And you can see that it's not even being impacted in the same part of the brain. And with dementia being such an invisible disease, anything that we can do to make it visible for our patients and our families is very helpful. So what can we do? The best thing we can do is equip ourselves. And I apologize, I can't read this slide because the Zoom's in the way. So if this was in person, we would start you out with a simulation. We would put special goggles and headphones and gloves on, and we would put you through an experience what it's like to live with cognitive impairment so that you can walk in the shoes of a loved one or a patient with dementia. And we do that to help build empathy. Empathy is the ability to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be thinking or feeling. Caring for someone requires many things, and I absolutely believe the most important thing that we can have is the ability to empathize with them. And something that we found over and over again we've put about 300 people through the simulation is watching people understand that empathy can be learned. Some people are very good and natural at it, and other people it doesn't come natural. But if you can put yourself in their shoes and have more compassion, then empathy grows. And so the goal of that is to then be able to focus on empathetic care and communication strategies. If you went through the simulation in person, the first thing we would ask after a group goes through is we sit them down in a private room, let them take a breather. If they went to our happy hour, then that also comes with a glass of wine and some cheese. And we ask them this very simple question: how do you feel? And these are the common responses that we get. They feel disappointed in themselves, but they were determined. They felt incompetent. They felt overwhelmed, or they felt like a failure. Families that are spouses to someone with dementia, they very often say the word sad because they're reflecting on what their loved one might be going through. And the whole point of our simulation is to help families not feel this way. Our goal is to not have somebody with dementia feel disappointed, anxious, determined. And how do we do that? Well, we've all heard the phrase before: perception is reality. And their reality is shifting, but it is up to us to change with the reality. We, with Healthy Brains, are very logically driven. Responsibility, accomplishments, our purpose is very, very important to us. What you do in your careers, with your families, is extremely important, and that drives your reality. But as your brain begins to digress with dementia, you become more emotionally driven. Your emotions have been with you since the day that you were born, and you came out crying. If you think about how we treat infants and children, we're always trying to make them laugh. We're trying to figure out their emotions because they can't figure it out themselves. And we focus on those through laughter, through music, through art. And that emotional feeling stays with somebody with dementia. And so what's right and what's wrong doesn't matter anymore. And if we can understand that they're more emotionally driven, then we can focus on the feelings. We can focus on the emotions versus the actual task at hand. We like to tell our families what matters most. And the answer that we get is quality time. Quality time should matter regardless. But as soon as someone is diagnosed with dementia, quality time is first and forefront in the front. And so we like to say, join them in the reality and be ready for it to evolve with the disease. And a quote from a caregiver that I love is, expect nothing, praise everything. And how can we do this? This slide, I truly believe, is true for every human on the planet, not just for somebody with dementia, but because at the end of the day, all any of us really care about is feeling supported, feeling connected, and feeling valued. And so if we can find ways to have our loved ones, our patients, have purpose and connection, help them feel safe and help them feel valued, that will go a very long way in the quality time that you have with them. Ways that you could do this is validate, repeat their concerns back to them. I understand that you don't want to go to the appointment today, but let's just do it together, and then we'll go and get ice cream afterwards. Reassure them, like I said, what's right and what's wrong doesn't matter anymore. And when in doubt, redirect, redirect, redirect. When my business partner, Arnie, his wife has Alzheimer's, she's in the moderate stage of it right now. And every single time I see Terry, the first thing I do is put a big smile on my face, give her a hug, tell her how happy I am to see her, and compliment her on something that she's wearing. I compliment her hair. I compliment the shirt that she's wearing. Oh my gosh, I love when you wear purple. You look so great in purple. And even if she walked into that room stressed out from something, the change of seeing somebody new and seeing somebody positive that is making a connection with her changes her entire feeling in that moment and puts her in a good situation. And so I'm going to see if this works. If this doesn't work, let me know, because I've never actually tried to embed a YouTube video. This video is of one of our volunteers, Larry Greiner. Some of you may have heard from him. He was a little bit of a Facebook celebrity that he's now in Carlsbad, California. But when his mother was diagnosed with dementia, with Alzheimer's, he moved back to his childhood home in Baltimore and slept in his childhood bed and took care of his mom. And in part of that, he decided to start taking her to the park. She has a singing background, and he decided there's no shame in anything. I'm just going to take her, put on some music, and just let her be herself, not worry about what anybody else thinks. And so he started taking her and to the park every single day. All right.
Where trouble melts like lemon drop. Trouble melts like high above the chimney tops. Okay, this is the chorus, dude. Now you got this. Somewhere over the rainbow. Give it to me. Okay, we found her second act.
So in that video, those three people are total strangers. They are just people that Larry takes her out, they go to different places, and it is the highlight of their day. Norma is her name, and Norma does not know that Larry is her son. Norma has to have be taken care of 100% of the time. But when music is on, she just comes alive. And if she doesn't know the lyrics, like you saw, she makes up lyrics. She just goes with it. Another example I'll give you is that with my mom's FTD, as I mentioned before, she lost her ability to read, write, and speak. But even when she was mute, she could still sing. And so we used to take her to church just to let my mom be herself and be able to sing all the words, chant all the prayers. And I used it in the caregiving. When my mom went through the phase that she was petrified of the shower, I used it to distract her. So I would, even if it was a simple song like row, 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 row your boat, I would sing to her and have her sing back with me. And we would sing the whole time while I was getting the shower prepared, getting her into the shower. And then usually she would still scream as soon as the water got turned on. And then I would just start singing louder, and then she would join me. And for a long time, that was very, very successful. Unfortunately, just like all the dementias, it does progress. And there was a point that, for better or worse, she was not afraid of the shower anymore. So we didn't have to sing at the top of our lungs, but sometimes we still did it anyways. All right. Now I can see, let's see if I can know how to get to the next slide. There we go. So empathetic care techniques. As I said, many of these you probably already do, but it's always great to have a reminder. Eye contact is always best. When we put people through the simulation, they can't see us while we're giving them the instruction. And that frustrates people beyond words, that they can't see our mouths moving. We all experienced COVID when everybody was walking around with their masks on, and in the medical setting, there's still people walking around with their masks on all the time. And so in understanding words is only about 20% of language. So it's really important to have eye contact so that they can read your lips, so they can see your mannerisms that are going on with your words. Approaching people not directly like a boo situation from the side, but from about 6 feet away and come towards them. And if they're sitting down, sit down with them. be equal with them and be at equal height with them. Listen with intent and understanding. Like I said at the beginning, it's a processing disease. If you ask somebody, hey, what do you want for dinner? Do you want veggie? Do you want, enchiladas? Do you want chicken? Do you want fish? And you just start rambling things off. They might not hear everything you say. And so their response might be fish purely because it was the last thing that you said. That doesn't necessarily mean they want fish. They might hate fish, but they were trying to process an answer. Also, because it takes a long time to process, again, back to my point that what matters more is the conversation you're having with them and the quality time versus what's right or wrong. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had a conversation with Terry and she's speaking gibberish. I have no idea what she's trying to say. She's pointing to things, and I just sit there and I smile and I encourage her and I wait. I let her, if there's places I can interject and help her, I do. But if I really don't know what she's saying, sometimes it's better to not try to guess because you might just frustrate them. And then typically she'll get to the end of whatever she was trying to say and then look at me with approval and be like, and I go, I know, I get it. I totally know. And I had no idea what she was talking about, but she was given the space to get her words out. Limit your conversations to shorter or simpler sentences. I like to remind everybody that unless you know their hard of hearing, it is not, they are not deaf. Speak slower, speak simpler. But people used to shout at my mom all the time, and I'd have to say, she's mute, she is not deaf. And as hard as it is, never argue. And a way that you can do that is suggest things, limit choices, and help make decisions for them. And you're not taking things away, you're making space for them to just enjoy the time. If you make a suggestion. Reminiscing is always a good go-to. And we like to say, make them the star. Where it is helpful, if you're trying to figure out a situation, is asking questions, looking for patterns. Are they frustrated during certain times of the day? Sundowning, for example. And so that's at the end of the day. Arnie realized that if he does not take the time first thing in the morning to connect with his wife and go outside, even if they just go around the block and come back, she has a worse day. She feels as if she's not seen. She feels as if she doesn't have any control over everything. But if he starts the morning off with telling her that he loves her and going for a walk with her, then she usually has a better time. There was another example that was given to me of someone who actually had sensitive teeth, and the caregiver had been brushing their teeth with cold water, and then the person was getting agitated, and then prescriptions were prescribed for agitation, and the reality was the person just had sensitive teeth and it was getting them upset when you brush their teeth with cold water. Back to what I said before, positive, the more positive you can be, your loved ones, your clients, they can sense your inflections, they can sense your tones. And when in doubt, breathe. When we don't breathe, our cortisol levels go up, we get more frustrated, they get more frustrated. Even if you're able to leave the room for a minute, leave the room for a minute, take a deep breath. I like to remind myself that they are losing skills they spent a lifetime acquiring, and they're doing the very best that they can. And so I would like to just do a quick time check. So this is just a quick exercise. If two people are willing to volunteer, just a simple question and a simple answer is all that it is. Is there any two folks that are open to going off mute and being person number one and person number two?
Sure.
Great. All right, so we have Melanie, you're person number one. Then we have a second person.
I'm happy to do it.
Great. Okay, so Melanie, if you could ask person number two, I apologize. I have a shrunken Zoom, so I can't see your name. Ask the other person what they had for breakfast. And the second person, don't answer until I say okay.
Dr. Smith, what did you have for breakfast today?
Okay, go ahead.
Eggs on toast.
Oh, that sounds nice, actually. So that was 20 seconds. I don't know about you guys, but even when I'm counting the 20 seconds in my head, I start to get uncomfortable about halfway through it. And that's how long it can take somebody with dementia to sometimes process what you just asked. And so that's why it's so incredibly important to listen with intent and to give them the space to say what they need to say, because they might need that extra time even to just take in what you said and process it. So the next question is, where can you go for help? And we like to remind families that as isolated as they might feel, there is a depth of resources out there for them. There is, the ADRC, there are respite options, there's ways to learn in support groups, palliative care options, elderly law. And so I won't harp too much on this, but this is just kind of a nice visual reminder that there are resources, but the number one question is often where to start. And that's something that we aim to help them with. We put together customized roadmaps for them and help prioritize where they can get support, because sometimes simply what they need is connected with the right support group. And other times it's getting the affairs in order. And so we help navigate them to those resources. We like to tell families to quote unquote go apes, advocate, prepare, and engage. The families really, as you know, really need to advocate to see the specialists, because there is a shortage of specialists out there. And we encourage them to make appointments as quickly as possible, because as you know, it could take 6 to 8 months to get that first appointment. But if they're given a diagnosis of a dementia and nothing else, they've been given the diagnosis of a cost, and that they have to be their own advocates. Prepare as much as possible, both with understanding the disease, dementia health literacy, any kind of affairs, state affairs or estate planning, being pulsed together, anything they can do before the disease progresses too far will make their life easier later. And then engage, find the right community. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Just a quick highlight on some of the resources in this area. First calls, like I said, our goal, we don't have the internal resources. Our goal is to connect them to the resources. For example, families that we know have a genetic mutation or genetics in the family, we send them to the ADRC to talk to you guys. We work very closely with the Alzheimer's San Diego, because they have companion programs and they have support groups that we don't have. And so, and they reference families for our grant. So we kind of can help put that roadmap together. A lot of people haven't heard of the Area Agency on Aging, but there's one in every county in every region across the United States. It's a national organization that can help families figure out where their local resources are, financial support, where they can maybe get some legal aid for free, etc. As I mentioned, Alzheimer's San Diego is a fantastic local resource. They have a hotline. The Southern Caregivers Resource Center, they have, and actually both of these have both English and Spanish speaking support groups. And I believe you guys do as well. I know that Yvonne, who's not with the ADRC anymore, but she was my intake person for all FTD before she left. And I know that she taught a Spanish speaking group. Hilarity for Charity, HFC, which is run by Seth Rogan and Lauren Rogan. They have an organization that's similar to mine. that they provide, but they provide in-home respite grants, up to 50 hours free of respite over a 3-month period. And they've gotten very heavy lately in brain health education. They have specialized support groups, especially for young families or remote families with minorities. Keep a Stowe is a great resource for families. She's known as the guru of caregiving. We provide families kind of a cheat sheet list of some of her YouTube videos. So you can kind of watch it in snippets. There's also a few really, really great podcasts out there that are only 15 to 20 minutes long. And so they're not overwhelming, but really great topic by topic. These Instagram influencers, for a lack of a better term, I find that they don't just give positive information, but practical tips, which is why I love to suggest them, because so much of this information is overwhelming for families. So being able to, being able to follow some of these Instagrammers are able to give them bite-sized tips of showering or drinking water or those day-to-day ADLs that are the most challenging for families. And this is what I call skip the line. There's an app out there called Rune. And Rune is, in fact, some of you might even be on it. They have, at this point, I think over 3,000 professionals answering questions on, day to day on what dementia is. Organizations like Further Thoughts, we explain kind of how we can help families, but it uses AI it utilizes AI in order for people to kind of do a search and then find videos by professionals that helps answer those questions. And then SMADRC can be a good interim between going to your own doctor. They take most insurances, but they have virtual healthcare professionals that focus on ALS. They just opened up FTD professionals, and I believe they do Alzheimer's as well. And so if somebody needs to see about somebody, but like they either can't get into UCSD for insurance purposes, or because they have questions that they need answered now and not in 8 months when they can get an appointment, SMADRC is a really great option for them. And I apologize, they're doing construction, so hopefully that's not too loud. Then these are just a couple more just reminders. There's day centers in our area. The Glenner Center is a really, really great one in Chula Vista. There's day centers all over the county. There's the Memory Cafe. And so I won't list all of these, but here's a few other resources. We also have a video on our YouTube channel called The Rules of the Road. It's an hour-long video provided by caregivers for caregivers. And it goes through some of the stuff we just talked about, but what are your top 5 to 6 rules of the road? Things from making a plan to changing your mindset of hate the disease, not the person, etc. And kind of helps families walk through that overwhelming first couple of months of the diagnosis. What I like to say is that we are as good as our resources and our creativity. I took a Swiftwater rescue class a couple of months ago, and the definition of creativity that is used in the safety world is creativity is people's ability to generate new and appropriate solutions to solve unforeseen problems for which no procedures or rules are available. And when I heard that, I was like, that describes caregiving for someone with dementia, 100%. And it is how we can be creative and resourceful that is going to help us get through our time with our families. And that could be using the empathetic care techniques that we talked about earlier, utilizing your care team and not doing it alone. And I like to remind families to be specific, because I'm sure they hear all the time, well, let me know how I can help. And families are trying to get through the day. They don't even have the ability to answer that question or figure out how they. And so we suggest for families to put together a list of, so if somebody says, well, what can I do to help? You can say, well, actually, you can do X, Y, and Z. You can come over and I'd love for you to come over and just spend time with me. I'd love for you to take my husband for a walk so I can go to the grocery store. Things like that. And so the last piece of this is kind of about ourselves, what we can do for our own brain. And some of you may be familiar with the neurologist, or sorry, neuroscientist David Eagleman. And one of his famous quotes is, "There's the most important thing you can do for your brain is to put it in novel situations and give it novel challenges." And so we all live in a world where we live and breathe by GPS. Sometimes even when we know where we're going, we still look it up on GPS. But try to change it up. Try to find a new way home from work, or look up the directions before you go somewhere, write them down, and don't pull your phone back out. Learn how to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. And the most important thing is that once you get good at something, chuck it and try something new. You want to stay somewhere in between so that it's challenging but not impossible, is what Dr. David Eagleman says. Kind of a cheat way that you could do it is engage your senses to experience the world differently. Put on the music. Like I mentioned, that was a game changer for helping my mom get in the shower. Suggest aromatherapy in the evening or in the morning to kind of to awaken your senses or to help calm the senses. Going for a walk, but pick a sense like hearing, and start to listen to all that white noise that's going on. See if you can pick out 5 noises on the same walk that you always do, but you never pay attention to. And bonus, which I'll on the next slide, being social is the cornerstone of, I'm supposed to say brain health, not brain health. So these are all common sense. I'm sure all of you already know this, but the big 4 are to socialize, eat a balanced diet, think in colors, think stopping at 80% full, which is a very Japanese culture way to do things. Make vegetables the primary dish on your plate. Movement. And we like to say movement more so than exercise. It's getting your heart rate up, but it's just moving every single day. We host a challenge every year called Move for Their Thoughts, and it's a mile-a-day challenge. You can run, walk, bike. It's 35 days. The whole entire goal is to stop for anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes a day and move a mile. Some people do a lot more than that, and they use it to get ready for a race or get back into shape, but minimal mile, and rest. And many of you know this, and I'm sure you preach this to your patients, that how incredibly important rest is. The toxins that are getting cleaned out of your brain while you're resting. And that happens not just while you're sleeping, but when you're taking micro breaks, when we take showers. Let's see, what are the few places left that we're completely unplugged? And I don't know about you, but I can't tell you the amount of times that I've gotten in a shower at the end of the day, and it was supposed to be a 5-minute shower, and 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God, I can't get out. And that's my brain telling me that it's overwhelmed and it needs more time. Pickleball and social activities actually do the same thing when it comes to detoxing your brain as rest does. So, at the end, circling back to the beginning, our path to impact is really, at the end of the day, our goal is to cure Alzheimer's, to cure FTD, to cure all the dementias. And by doing that, we need structured care support for families today. We need to close the funding gap. And we need to decrease the feelings of isolation that families have. And Further Thoughts really focuses on that bottom section on how to do that. I like to say that our Care for the Caregivers program is applying triage, where we are helping families navigate where to go for resources, so that they can get through the day-to-day, while the right hand is creating that widespread empathy by doing our immersive education, by having conversations like this. And so these are our programs. The Care for the Caregivers Relief Program for live-in families comes with a no strings attached $1,000 relief grant. they can use that for anything that that they want that has to do with relief. We had a family recently use it to she has 4 kids, and they're 4 young kids, 8 and 12, 8-year-old triplets and 12-year-old, and she just wanted a day for her kids to be kids. So she used the money to get respite for her husband with young dementia and take her kids to Legoland into Disneyland. We had another family use it for a plane ticket to go see family while her husband was still lucid. Many families use it for respite or for bills, but it's up to them. And then you as professionals can nominate these families. And I think I might have it. Yep, professional. So the process is they have to be a living caregiver. Our grant process is closed right now, but it will reopen later this year. But a professional can nominate somebody. Yvonne nominated 3 different families over the last 2 years. And those families all received grants. The application for the caregiver is very, very simple because we trust you as the caregiver, or sorry, as the nominator, that you are vouching for the credibility of that this is in fact a dementia caregiver that lives with their loved one. And then they receive the grant, which is again $1,000 plus their own personalized care navigation roadmap. If families just need the navigation and they either are not in financial need or that part of the program is closed, we are still happy to help them put a roadmap together and navigate their resources for them. This is just a testimonial from one of the families. Thanks so much for doing all this boots on the ground work. I'm truly not used to anyone doing this for us. And then our second program is our immersive education, which I mentioned is when you put on the specialized headphones and goggles and gloves and go through simulation. And our goal with that is to equip the care community, equip all of us that are surrounding the families so that we have the confidence and the knowledge to step in and support them. We do a happy hour almost every month. We don't have one this July, but our next one will be August on the 3rd Tuesday. And that's in Carlsbad. It's free to the public, free for anybody to join. And there's the QR code if anybody would like to register. For professionals, CEUs and CMUs are optional. And we can also set up a workshop and come do it as well. So, like I said, you can be a nominator for a family. You can join the immersive education if you're interested. And we're always looking for people to join our board for both professionals and caregivers. And, anybody that really just wants to give back to this community. So that is the end of my presentation.